Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Davis, and you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture. And yes, I am scandalous like an Ashley. But enough about that, because I have with me legendary Tom Hutchison from Big Dog Inc. Obviously, I think everybody should know Big Dog Inc., but I got Tom here, so welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Always good to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to have you on. And you got a lot of stuff going on. You obviously have Critter issue 24, the ongoing series, right now on Kickstarter. You're at 8,300 on the dot. Obviously, I think you're going to do more in the next 18 days. But we are going to talk about that in a few minutes here. But I am curious, because why don't you introduce yourself to everybody who doesn't know who Big Dog Inc. is, as well as what Critter is, because there's people who are obviously coming into comics and don't know who you are, and that's a shame, and they're about to learn who you are.
Yeah, so I'm the publisher. I'm all the things, basically. When you say Big Dog Inc., I'm all of the things, essentially. I'm the writer of 99% of the books. I am the publisher of all of the things. I do the art directing. I build all the Kickstarters. I ship all the packages. I do the live sales. I go to the cons. I do all of the required elements of, Big Dog Inc., whatever that is. We're wrapping up year 14. 2025 will be our 15-year anniversary. We'll be starting it with Critter. We're ending with Critter here. We're starting with Critter in January, issue 25 in January. That'll launch our 15-year anniversary for the company, for Critter, and for Penny for Your Soul. Those were the two books that we started with back in 2010. So we'll be kind of focusing on those two, but we'll be doing other stuff throughout the year as well, because it's the company anniversary as well as the books. So right now, we just launched Critter on Saturday. We're at $8,300. We're $700 away from the first stretch goal. We got plenty of time for you guys to dive in. If you don't know Critter, it's a very easy to absorb book. Old school superhero stuff. I grew up with superhero comics like the 70s and 80s, 90s, obviously. And so it's very much a throwback to all the stuff that I loved about superheroes before everything went dark and gritty, right? The 80s when everything was like, oh, now everything's got to be dark and gritty. I'm like, no, I reject all of that. So I made a superhero book that is the opposite of that. Now, that's not to say we don't have, deeper stories. Of course, you can tell deep stories within the fun superhero world, but it's spandex costumes, it's utility belts, it's secret identities. It's all the fun stuff that to me is what superheroes is supposed to be. And then it's blended with, science fiction and time travel and, all kinds of other things that go in with it. Again, Fantastic Four was a superhero book, but it was a science fiction series as well. So it's just all of the things kind of put together using a Catgirl superhero who is, starting at the beginning of the book. It's the beginning of her career, her figuring out, what is her place in this giant world of heroes and villains, and who is this guy who has said he's come from the future to watch her fulfill her destiny that he knows happens at such and such a time down the line. So there's a lot of levels to it, a lot of layers to it, and it's a lot of fun. It's very easy to get into. There are 5 volumes of it so far. This issue 24 is part of volume 6. So if you haven't read the book, you can very easily dive into all of the volumes. You can get that in the campaign, either digitally or physically, either way. Or if you just want to try out the last few issues, we have a thing that we do. It's called the quick catch up, which is just like the last 3 or 4 issues. So in this case, you'll get 21, 22, 23, 24. You can kind of try out the current arc. And then if you like it, you can dive back in and grab the rest of the series. But that's where we are as of right now.
So let's kind of talk about Critter a little bit, because I love the 70s and the 80s from superheroes. So I'm a big Teen Titans fan, and I love like the Marv Wolfman, George Perez run. I wound up spending like $300 and bought about 100 print run, not a great copy of them, kind of fine to pour, but enjoyable to read. Readers' copies. I thought it was a bargain to buy that stuff and read it and like smell like the ink from like the 70s and 80s. But I love that stuff before it got gritty. I love the fact that it was starting to get a little gritty. But what is that like? Because I feel to some degree, and this is why I'm a big manga fan, where, you know, an anime fan is that like certain animes, and I gravitate towards it. It's just colorful, it's fun, it's enjoyable. And I feel that's lacking because I have a very negative view where I feel everybody in comics is trying to write their grand comic story. And sometimes a comic should be fun because my life is hard. I mean, life is hard in general, and I want a distraction. I don't want to know what Batman's problem is today.
Yeah, I agree to a point. There was a time when, you know, mainstream comics and stuff really told good stories, but I don't know that that's the case in a lot of books from the last decade or so. You know, partially because everything just keeps getting rebooted and retconned and reset, and it's like, well, what are we doing? Like, you know, what did you do 10 years ago that was so bad that you now have to retcon all of it out and restart things? It just makes it too difficult for readers to kind of come in and you know, engage in these worlds. So that's one of the advantages to all indie comics, is that you're coming in to a new world, new characters, new situations. You don't have 500 issues of something that, you know, you need to go back on. It's very easy to get the 5 volumes of Critter. Boom, you're done. You're in. You've got, you know, almost 30 issues of a series just like that. But you know, if you are a fan of older stuff, if you like Teen Titans, if you like 80s and 90s Spider-Man, if you like that kind of stuff, that's where Critter comes from. That's sort of to me, that's the sweet spot. Is, again, you can tell sort of fun stories. You can have like the spandex costumes and the color, but, you know, you can still tell good, deep stories. Like, you know, Teen Titans had all kinds of deep stuff when they're dealing with Terra and Deathstroke and all that kind of stuff. So you can have aggressive stories within the fun realm of what superheroes are. And that's sort of where Critter is. She kind of sits in that sweet spot of, yeah, we can have some fun, but there's also layers of this story, and not all of it is nice.
Because that's what I like. And I've read a bunch of Critter. I haven't read all of it, but I've read a bunch of it. And that's kind of what I like about Critter in particular, is that it starts off very much in a sweet element. And then we get into some, you know, interesting things that go on. And then now we're getting into some heavy stuff with this time travel and who is Paradox. Spoiler alert a little bit, mentioned an enemy. I'm sorry if I ruined it for anybody. You're going to have to deal with it, you know, on your time, not mine. But we're also now dealing with the multiverse and different critters running around and real consequences for actions. And that's kind of what I think is interesting, is that we're now kind of getting this really cool thing, what you were describing to some degree. But that's my big issue with comics right now, in particular, just as a reader, not even as a consumer, not even as a seller, flipper, or anything else, is that like, I'm like, I just want to read something that's just like nicely put together and also has continuality. Because that's my biggest problem in comics, is that, and you have 24 issues where I don't think that you're going to reboot Critter anytime soon, if ever. And that's my biggest problem with comics. And that's what I think is interesting after 24 issues. And I think there's 5 and then some spin-off stuff where there's no reboot of this series. And I think that's what's fascinating in particular about Critter, is that I don't know how many people in indie comics has 24 issues of their series out there.
Yeah, there's no reason to reboot anything. If a new writer comes in and they're like, well, I don't like what happened before, whatever the previous stuff was. If you're a good writer, you just write around it. You're just like, okay, that's where we are. That's what he gave me. Okay, now I'm going to take that and I'm going to make it something that I like, you know. But to be like, well, I don't like that, so I'm going to erase it somehow. That's weak to me. That's really weak. It's not to say that you can't do things like alternate takes on the book. You know, if you have an alternate take, like, you know, DC and stuff have done this many times with the ultimate universes and absolute universes and all that. If you have a different take, go do a different take. But for me, I would love to just see these main characters just keep going down the line, you know. but they've been reset so many times. But you can see that even Marvel and DC, they love those numbers, because whenever they get around to like Batman 1000, right, it's not Batman 1000, because Batman has started and stopped. It's 4 or 5 different Batman series to equal that 1,000 issues. But when they got to there, they certainly wanted to let you know that this is Batman 1000. So to me, it would have been way cooler if we literally had gotten Action Comics 1000, Detective 1000, as opposed to the starting and stopping stuff. But that's just me. For me, Critter doesn't have, it's like Invincible, right? Like there's no reason to reboot it. You have a story to tell, and tell the story. And again, if you have alternate things that you want to do with the character, tell them in an alternate setting. But the story will always just go from beginning, middle to end. And once it's over, then it's over. I mean, and it should be over. Nothing needs to last forever. And in fact, it wasn't until Invincible was done for years before the Amazon TV show came around. So it wasn't like it happened during some peak of the comic book. Just tell a story, make it good, know how it finishes, whether you're doing 10 issues or 20 or 100, just know how it finishes. I know how Critter finishes. And then just tell your story, just go with it.
So that again, I don't disagree. I don't disagree in which that I believe stories have a beginning, middle, and end, and they should end. Very few stories should never end. And I can't think of one off the top of my head, but there are a few that probably should have never ended.
Well, the idea of stories ending, there's a difference between stories ending and like IP ending, right? Like I'm not going to tell DC like never make a Batman book again. That's crazy. But there's definitely, and we're kind of in this world now where everything is a story and then it's done, and then they reboot the book and someone else comes on and does their thing, and then they tells their story and it stops, and it just keeps going like that. So again, I think that you can do that better organically than the companies have done, but they've gotten so hung up on, well, we need issue number ones because that helps the attrition rates, because we sell 50,000 number ones, but we only sell 20,000 number twos. And I'm like, well, yeah, because you're making things for collectors, not for readers. If you went back and focused on your readership and making stories for your readers that want to come in, if every 20,000 people that buy Batman number one buy Batman number two because they want the story, your attrition doesn't crash. But there's all this hype around number ones and 50 different covers and punching up these numbers artificially. So you really have to understand that the attrition is the reality. That's the readership. So it doesn't matter where you start, your readership is going to be whatever your attrition is. And if people don't want the story, your attrition rates will continue to drop and drop and drop. And you have to pay attention to that. And their answer has been, well, let's just reboot the book and put another number one out. And that's where things just get so confusing for collectors and new people. Like, where am I supposed to come in on the X-Men? Like, there's like 80 X-Men number ones now. I wouldn't know where to tell people to start other than just like whatever the recent one is. But it's convoluted in the mainstream. And so I think that's an advantage that indies have, because most indie books don't have tons of issues. Things like Spawn obviously are the exception, but most indie books are less than 100 issues in for their stories. And the only thing that I can think of that's ever made it to 100, beyond 100, is like Cerebus and like Grim Fairy Tales made it to 100, but then even they canceled the book and started over again. So it's been done, but really I kind of have this sense of like 100 is sort of this like almost max out period. Even Invincible, it went over 100, but it didn't get to like 200. I think it was like 150 or 60 or 70 or something, and then it stopped.
Even Walking Dead ended at 193.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say Walking Dead was an indie book, but it's a weird one. It's a weird one because it's kind of a corporate book, but it's also a hybrid because it's an image book. But
yeah, but it was an indie book to start, and it almost got canceled. So yeah, I mean, it counts. It counts, but it grew. But that's the point, right? Is that indie books can grow. They can catch a fan base, they can catch an audience, they can catch the eye of Hollywood, and they can become more than what they were. in that starting point of hey, here's Critter #1. Maybe in 10 years it's an animated series. Who knows?
So to even talk about this though, and go even into Critter a little bit, because obviously 24 issues, almost 25 issues, was just coming out in January. I mean, that's nothing to even sneeze at this point too, because 24 issues, 25 issues, if we're going to count the mini series minus the ongoing, so that's like almost 29 issues. I mean, I don't know how many books make it past 6 issues on the indie scene, because I think it's hard to do an indie book because you're doing everything yourself. And I was speaking to somebody and they said, I have all the problems that Marvel has, but not all the money. And it was a great
not
quote.
All the money and not all the infrastructure of it.
Beyond a bunch of other problems too, we don't have to get into. But tabling that, but like when you have 24 issues of something, I mean, at some point you have to say, oh my God, I've beaten the odds. And there's a lot of stuff. I think people forget that you started in 2010. It's not that this just was 24 issues in 2 years. This was every 3 months or every 4 months or every other month or anything like that. So,
well, it was monthly when we started. But when we moved over to Aspen, everything stopped for like almost 4 years because we were reprinting everything through the Aspen brand. So there was a big hiatus of new material while we were with Aspen. And then when we came out of Aspen, we went back into Kickstarter rather than just diving back into the retail market and just being like, well, let's just go back to the way we were doing it. Cause everything was different at that point. The market had changed. Everything was different. And so we focused on Penny for Your Soul at that point. And then sort of every year we came back to a new book and we're like, okay, let's focus on Oz. Let's focus on Ursa Minor, so on and so on. So there was a big hiatus for Critter, which is why we kind of have 30 issues almost in 14 years, because we had like 5-6 years of nothing for her until we came back to the series now. So, yeah, it's just a different world because we used to do 3 to 5 books a month going out through Diamond when we were in Diamond and we were going to retail stores. And then even when we were with Aspen, we were still putting out 1 or 2 Big Dog Ink books a month. But again, it was all reprint stuff. And then when we started with Kickstarter, we had to kind of be like, well, one at a time, because that's just the way that the system was. System's changed a little bit with Kickstarter now, and it kind of opens up some possibilities of doing more quickly if you're prepared for it. But as of right now, we do about 6 campaigns a year, so about every other month. But we do it so with Critter, we'll do a couple of Critters, and then we'll do like another book like Goth Day or, our annual BD 13, 14, whatever. Then we'll come back to Critter. We'll do another one. So we kind of bounce back and forth, but it's Kickstarter just requires a different sort of thought process. We're even having done it now for like almost 8 years. We're still learning things. And again, the system changes, even Kickstarter system changes their rules and their allowances of how you can do projects that overlap. Like before here's a campaign. Okay. You did a campaign. But we want to do another one before we fulfill this one. They're like, okay, but you can only do so many before you make sure that this one is fulfilled. It's like you can do like 6, that sort of overlap. But once you kind of reach that point, if you haven't fulfilled this oldest one, then they start looking like, well, wait a minute, you've got all of this not done. Like, you need to get that done. So it's a little tricky if you get a little outside the box, but it also allows for, the things that happen. Artists get sick, printers make mistakes, like things just happen where things can slow down. And again, infrastructure for indies is non-existent. Everybody's flying by the seat of their pants. It's day to day, month to month. It's who can I get on a cover? It's who can I get to do this book? Is he going to get drawn away by somebody else paying him more money, which can happen. There's a million ways for a book to just hit a wall and stop.
I agree. Yeah. In which that, I mean, I'll ask you this question. I've been fortunate, and I'll be open. I've only been burned on 2 or 3 projects out of like the 150
Same.
that
I've only had problems with like 2. Yeah.
So, and I get that shit happens, and the problems I've had with the, actually it's been 5, but we're not counting the other 2, but we're not going to get into that because that's a whole different mess. The 3 that I've had issues with, there's been other things and they've been bad operators, is what it's amounted to. Where the problem isn't the art problem or the writing problem, it's the people had no fucking idea what they were doing. And there's been a lot of fuckery going on, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And it's them, not me, the backer. Sometimes you back a high flyer and it goes south. I throw $50 into a crazy stock and it goes to 0 every once in a while. But it's a high flyer and it could go to $1 million on $50 or it could go down to 0. It's one or the other. But it's only $50. I knew what I was doing with it, and I was taking a risk. It's like playing the lotto every once in a while. But, I get that on indies, but I want to go back to the attrition rate because I think Kickstarter in a lot of ways is very much the anti-position to that, what we were talking about with DC and Marvel, is that because I think you have a lot of return backers. And I know that I backed a bunch of your projects, and I want to read Critter. I want to read Penny for Your Soul. And I'm more of a graphic novel reader, so I like when you do out a remaster of a graphic novel because I missed Penny for Your Soul when it first came out. I didn't know you existed until almost 6 years ago. So, if you're 14 years in, I missed 8 years of Big Dog Inc. And that's just the fact of what it is.
Sure.
But that's one of the things that I think is interesting as well, where now I want to read more Penny for Your Soul. And I like having those collectible books, but I'm a reader. I'm also a collector. I'm also a reseller, and I enjoy selling your books. I have a guy in England who enjoys buying from me a lot of your books, and he's always happy when I send him your products. So, it's one of those things, though, that obviously I think Kickstarter very much is an attrition solution because a lot of people back on Kickstarter because they want to read those books. And so
Can be, but it's also a shell game because a lot of the guys that are buying stuff are buying not for you, but for like the cover artist. And so if you, like, for example, if someone was like, oh, I like Dan Mendoza, so I'm going to buy that cover. Okay, great. But if you don't have Dan Mendoza on the next one, he's not buying from you. So there's a shell game element to it of like high-end collectors want all of this stuff and they will buy from you. But if you ever don't have those guys, they will ignore you. So you really need to build a foundation of collectors / readers that want what you do, which for us, we've landed around 200 or 300 is sort of our average on a campaign. And then some of our other ones like Oz gets up into like 400 and, so on. But again, a lot of those bigger campaigns like that too have some of the bigger names attached to them. So that changes the dynamic of it. It's Kickstarter is a shell game for sure.
It's interesting. That's interesting because it brings up an interesting point that's a little slightly different. So when a player in baseball, and I know how much you hate baseball, but it's relevant in my eBay store, you could track your track just. So for the longest time, Pete Alonso and the Mets were not great. But whenever Pete Alonso was on fire and he had spurts, his cards were coming out with Tops Now, and my store would get more traction because there'd be more Pete Alonso stuff.
Sure,
and then
100%.
that dissipates. So we talk about a shell game. There are certain players that attract attention. Ohtani is the greatest baseball player of all time. You heard it here first. If you don't believe me, just watch what happens on Friday. That's all I'm going to say to everybody. Just trust the system. Just trust the system. We might have bombed Japan, but they won the war 50 years later. I want to make that crystal clear. But anyway, all jokes aside, but it's interesting you bring up a shell game because it is tricky, I think, because I know I sell more when Pete Alonso is on fire. There's more cards because the people who are buying a Pete Alonso card will then buy an Aaron Judge card. And then I'm shipping those cards together. But then the Aaron Judge card, when Pete Alonso is doing shitty, it still will sell, but it takes longer. Now, maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe it's the month of July. I don't know. But I've noticed this over the last 2 or 3 years. So I find that fascinating. But again, I don't really fully understand that Kickstarter world of the shell game perfectly because I ran a Kickstarter. I don't want to run one ever again. And it just seems so fucking complicated to play this game. And it seems like
it's not complicated. It's just effort. and part of Kickstarter, part of the thing that drives Kickstarters upwards how really, really high is when they're kind of treated almost like game shows. And that just again, that's infrastructure. That just takes a lot of effort from people to do that. And not everybody has that sort of time, energy, wherewithal to be doing all of that stuff. So for me, I kind of fall in between. I'm kind of like, I don't want to do all of that. Like, I just want to sell books, but I also at the same time have an understanding of marketing, advertising, building this brand of things to make people want to be involved. That's important as well. So there's different ways that you can attack selling comics, whether it's Kickstarter or not, because again, we sold comics for like 8 years before, or 7 years before Kickstarter. So there's different ways of doing things in different capacities. But now, especially with all the social media stuff, I mean, you can put yourself everywhere all the time. But again, it's time, it's effort, it's the creativity of making whatever it is you have to make. And not everybody is up to that. Just in the comic book world alone, there are professional people who struggle at conventions because they don't know how to interact with people. You know, hey, I'm a fan of your stuff. And they're like, what do you want me to sign? Like, okay, go away. You know, that they don't know how to do that. And so that becomes even harder when you're doing stuff like this, where they're trying to, well, now people are saying, well, now you have to make social media posts, and now you have to make videos, and now you have to show pictures, and you have to do all this stuff. We just want to make comics, man. We just want to make the comic. We want to put it in your hand as easy and quickly as we possibly can. And we want you to enjoy it. And then we want to make another one.
You and me spoke about this. You know how many people are terrified to do an interview? People are terrified. Yeah. And I'm like, yo, I'm the easiest person to speak to. Like, we're going to be talking about your art in a friendly way.
Yeah.
And like, I've convinced somebody, and it took me like 4 or 5 times, and being like, look, we could do it pre-recorded. And the person's like, why don't we do this live after the interview? I'm like, I told you we should have done it live. And the person's like, I'm terrified to do this. And I'm like, but like, this is so easy. It's not hard. I'm not going to destroy you. I'm not asking you anything that's ultra tough. Like, yeah. But like, people are terrified of public speaking. And I get it. I understand fears. I'm scared of things too. And weird things scare me.
So I'm horrible with public speaking, like in a room, in a group. But as far as this goes, this I've done enough times on enough shows with enough people that like I get this sense that people get me now. Like they know Tom, like they know Tom's going to rag on movies. They know Tom's going to do this and that. Like they get the shtick that is me. And so I don't feel like I have to come in and like put on weird airs and just be like, hello, I'm Tom Hutchison and I write comic books, and please, you know, it's like, no, let's just talk and be people. But that's hard for some people because they feel like they need to be almost business-like in their interactions, you know, with the fans. And there is a level of like professionalism that you want. But at the same time, you know, you kind of want those people that are watching and listening to relate to you in some capacity, because if they relate to you, then they're like, oh, hey, Tom, he likes Jaws. Like I like Jaws. So maybe I will like what Tom writes, and they'll make that attempt.
I'll tell a story. So I'm in a unique setting at Awesome Con where it just so happens that I've done a lot of research on gay and lesbian-oriented comics and the foundations of it, because I was interviewing Howard Cruz and I was writing an article for somebody on it, and I decided to do the panel as a straight white male doing the gay panel on the gay track. It's probably the minority here. Weird. So I'm trying to do crowd work, and obviously the crowd, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say this in the least offensive way I could say it, is very uptight, very nervous. They're in what technically is a safe space in their panel, and I'm trying to do crowd work. And the second I say, as a physically disabled man, oh my God, guys, I'm walking on crutches and I'm having a hard time here. This place is fucking huge. And I drop it. The whole room went from being like, oh my God, this guy gets us. And you could sense the room's temperature went from like being super stressed out to being, okay, this guy clearly is straight. He's not one of us, but oh my God, he's now one of us. And it's a weird thing. So like talking about relatability, it's so important. But again, it's my favorite story to tell because here I am in this room and I'm like, this place is fucking huge. Like, I don't know how you guys are handling it.
My first ever panel, I wrecked the place because I was completely the antithesis of what the fans wanted to hear about things. The panel was like something about women characters in comics or something like that. And so the panel was me, J. Scott Campbell, Joe Linsner, and Billy Tucci. And this is my first ever panel in my life. So the other three of them show up late. So I have about 15 minutes till these guys show up that the panel is me and all these people. And these are people that don't know who I am because I'm brand new at this. This is like year 2 for me in Comic-Cons. And so, but I told them, I was like, okay, look, I do this comic, I do this. And basically I always just kind of try and open it up. Like I can say things, but like, I know you have questions, so just bring me questions. And so I would just kind of answer questions about stuff. And we'd talk about like Marvel and DC characters and, all that kind of stuff. And, we got around, it came out that I was like a big Wonder Woman fan and I was reading Wonder Woman all this time. And I was like, so, and I've been reading this Gail Simone, because she had just come on Wonder Woman at the time. And you could see the room just light up like, oh, he's going to talk about Gail Simone. And I was like, and I dropped the book almost immediately because it was unreadable. And then the room became like, what did he just say? What is going on? But I was like, who cares? Like, we're all just talking, right? But when the guys came in and we had like the full panel and everybody was talking, at the end of the panel, one of them specifically came up to me. He says, I really liked what you had to say about stuff on this panel. I can't say that because I work for all these companies, but I really liked what you had to say. And so that was like a really big boost for me, because for me, I'm not beholden to anyone because I don't work for anyone, right? I've worked for other places. I've worked for Aspen. I have nothing bad to say about them. Worked for Dynamite. I had an amazing experience at Dynamite, so I have nothing bad to say about them. But generally speaking, I work for myself. I make my own things. So it's not like I have a corporation above me that I have to be like careful with what I say. So whenever I do these shows, that's why I always say, like, I'm going to be on somebody's show and we're going to cause trouble, because I always invariably find a way to cause trouble within the context of what I think the audience sort of wants to hear. But I'm oftentimes the opposite.
I don't censor people on this show. I don't care. I don't owe anybody anything within reason. Sure. Obviously, people have treated me well. I've been treated very well by Zenoscope. I've been treated very well by Bad Donut as a company. And, those people have been very kind to me. I've been treated pretty shitty by other people with customer service. I'm not going to, bash anybody in particular, but, but at the same time, people say, why are you interviewing this person? People said, why are you interviewing Tom Hutchison? I'm like, well, I don't really care why you think I'm interviewing Tom. I like Tom. Tom has treated me well, and Tom has knowledge about comics, and I like Tom's books, and it's my show. So if I want to interview Tom Hutchison, that's fine. If I want to interview a porn star right after you, that's fine too, because it's my show. And if you're upset about that, well, when you pay my bills, Raven Gregory said, when you mortgage your house to do your comic book, you get to call the shots. Until that point, or if I mortgage my house to do this show, I get to call the shots. And that's what it comes down to. And I'm going to say whatever I want to say. And if you don't like it, I live in America, and you could turn the channel. You could tell me that my show sucks. You can not watch it. You could boycott it. You can do whatever you want. But I'm going to be here for the next 30 years, everybody. And I think you're going to be here for the next 30 years. So, because it's your company, and you get to do what you want to do. and I'm not going to censor you.
That's it. That's it. Simple. Pretty simple.
So, but no, I find that so interesting. I find it so interesting about all of that. So, but again, my experience is that if I'm doing a panel at a con, if the con doesn't know who I am, that's your fault. I mean, I give you all the information, and you're not paying me. But I'm not going to be disrespectful to somebody's house. I treat my gay panel very, very tamely compared to other panels that I've done. But that's just how I feel. But enough about that. But I do want to talk still about Critter because I think it's interesting because I like the last few issues of Critter a lot. And I've read the early stuff. I have the nice collector's edition. It's in my bookshelf because I don't want to ruin it. I'm not gonna lie. I haven't even opened it. It's beautiful. It's like in this little plastic wrap that you sent me, which is nice. I paid for it. I want to make that crystal clear. It was like $80, which was great. It's pristine. It's great. I haven't even opened up your action figures yet. I can't wait to open those up. They're gonna be fun to play with. But again, if this isn't a plug for you, I don't know what this is.
Action figures are also available on the crowdfunding campaign.
And Blue Jay is next, right?
Nope. Nope. But we are working on one. I don't know if it's going to happen next year or not, but we are working on the next one. I would like it to happen next year, but I don't know if don't know if it's going to quite make it. We'll see.
Well, I enjoy action figures. I enjoy action figures a lot because action figures are fun. Some of my favorite comic covers are the action figure comic covers. Adam Rich is just a great human being, and I love his artwork. He did the WWE stuff for Boom, which is awesome. And he was fun to interview because he's absolutely just an awesome, awesome person who's done so much cool shit. The fact that he's designed like half of Johnny Gargano's gear is just wild. And he designed Mickey James's like WrestleMania 33 entrance gear, which was cool too. But I digress. Quick plug for me. Go check out that interview, everybody. It's on my YouTube channel. But what is this like for you though? Because 24 issues of Critter, almost 12 years, I think it is a fair assessment of, kind of the ongoing, maybe 14, depending on how you want to count it. But you've evolved as a writer. And I know that you and me have spoken about that, where you've gone from writing comics, and feel free to correct me at any point, but I know you've gone through also producing it more in a cinematic fashion, I think is a good way to put it. And so what is that like? Because that's also interesting because, and I say this where I think the last like 4 or 5 issues of Critter has been some of your best work. And that's not to say things like, other things you've done in the last 4 or 5 years as well hasn't been great, but like you've gotten massively better as a writer, and I'm going to say that as polite.
I totally agree. I mean, it's an active. I've had people over the years, the last handful of years, literally tell me like, when I read your comics, I feel like I just watched a movie, and I'm like, that's good because that's the point that I'm trying to make in the writing. That's the style that I'm trying to bring now, versus when you go all the way back and you see where I started from. I started from zero. I didn't know what I was doing. So the fact that I was able to even make anything that people could coherently digest that's a miracle in and of itself. But you can, for sure, if you start at the beginning of Critter or Oz or Penny for Your Soul specifically, because we have like 6 volumes of all of that, you'll watch the writing get better. You'll watch the art get better. You'll watch everything start to really find its place. And probably the last 5 or 6 years, really, I think since I came out of Aspen, when I came back into heavy writing, because I had to get all these books back up, spooled up again. That's when I really kind of had more time to focus on it. So instead of putting out like 3 books a month, I was doing like 1 book every few months. And so it gave me more time on my scripting to really kind of focus on, okay, what am I doing? Where am I? What do I want to accomplish? What is extraneous that I don't need? What can I tighten up? How do I use the panels and things, you know, in a better way. So yeah, it definitely, I can feel it. I mean, I can look at my own stuff and be like, this is wildly different than where I was at the beginning. And I've had people tell me this is like watching a movie, and I'm like, yes, that's it, because I love movies. And so even when I watch movies now, I'm not always just watching purely to watch it and enjoy it and whatever it is. Especially if I'm watching it for like a second or a third time, I start to analyze how the camera is used and how they show, particularly like the talking head portions of films, where it's like where you're moving back and forth, like, hey, this guy's talking, now this guy's talking, now this guy's talking, this guy's talking. Like, how do they do it in interesting ways? And so I've taken some of that and you know, translated it into how I do stuff. Different transitions from panel to panel, different transitions from page to page. I feel like I can see it better now. And that was partially due to the break that I took when I was with Aspen, because we were reprinting stuff. And I didn't have to write very much. And then when it came time to writing, I just had more time. And so I wanted to hone the craft, as they say, hone that craft. And I think I've done it. I think people can see the difference. And, you know, I get great reactions when they read the books. Like when Princess vs. Zombies came out, this last issue, we dropped the digitals on people. And that same day I was getting messages from people like, what the fuck? What is this? Like, what is going on? So again, I had these moments that I'm hoping for reaction, and man, I got them. So, you know, it was like another pat on the back. Like, you did it. Now you got to do it again, but at least you got that one done. So, you know, on to the next one. So, it's great. It's great when people see it, because if they see it, then, you know, the work that you're putting into it, you know, matters.
It's interesting. It's interesting in which that, you know, obviously I don't see that the same way in interviews, but I definitely get reactions and data points on YouTube that's helpful. And when somebody's watching 40 minutes of an interview, you're like, okay, there's something here.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while you get one of those, or you get a clip that gets like 30,000 views or 40,000 views. Every once in a while you're like, okay, there's obviously something here. And so it's very, I guess, reaffirming for me, and I would imagine it's reaffirming for you, that, okay, I created a reaction, whether people are happy, upset, whatever, because the worst thing I think could happen is no reaction and dead silence. Mm-hmm. I think hate or positive feedback, or, oh my God, this was brilliant, I felt like I watched a movie, oh my God, like, what's the next sequel here? Like, any reaction is positive. You know, obviously I interview a lot of wrestlers, and whether you're being booed or cheered, you don't want silence. You don't want to be the bathroom match. Mm-hmm. It is the point that I'm getting at. So I would imagine that it's nice too, because it's like, okay, cool. Now you got a bunch of people saying, hey, what happens next, man? Like, this was amazing. Like, when's the next one coming? Like, because, I mean, it's good for business. It's a good problem to have, right?
Of course. That's the problem is, you know, that you want to have, is people waiting on the next one. Like, give me the next one. Give me the next one. But yeah, it's coming. Just wait. Just remember how you reacted to this one, though. You had tears in your eyes. Don't know what's going to happen next time.
But and then the other thing I want to talk about that you mentioned is that also, I mean, obviously I think your writing has come along, but I also think the art just in general in society has gotten better. And I also think that there's more liberation with art, where I think the world, and I'm going to say this the nicest way I could say it, I think the world's become a smaller place.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
Social media is very much larger. I think you get better talent. I think also, and this is going to sound maybe messed up, but the fact that the world is also more connected. So perhaps 10 years ago, somebody in Spain didn't have as good internet connection or access to something, and now they do, or somebody in Australia might not have, or somebody in India, or potentially somebody in Asia might have not had as much internet connection and access, and now they do. And well, that talent is coming out, or maybe, you know, there's just a new generation of kids coming up too. That could also be the thing where,
well, it's both. And it's the doors are open to the world now, because we don't have it. Back in the old days, we used to have to actually have the pages in hand, photograph them and all that kind of stuff way back in the day. But nowadays, all we need is scans and digital files. So it doesn't matter where you work anymore. If you're good and somebody can find you, you can get a gig. I hire all kinds of people that are, outside the United States. So, yeah. In fact, there was a guy just the other day. This is how fast it can move. And so we had a book we were working on for next year that he had to drop out on. And not 30 seconds after that conversation was done, I got a message from a guy, from an artist who I didn't know. But as soon as he showed me his samples, I knew that he had worked for some people that I knew. And I was like, "Oh, you worked for them and them?" He's like, yeah. I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I said, "I happen to have a project that might work for what you're showing me. And, would you just be willing to do like a simple sample page so I can see how you deal with some of these, elements that we need? Because I need to make sure because you're drawing a lot of sci-fi here, which is fine, but this is a more grounded in reality thing. I need to make sure you can draw real things, not just make up starships." And he was like, "Yeah, that's fine." So he did the page. He did the rough. The rough already looks amazing, so I know it's going to be fine. But 30 seconds after that message was done, I had another artist basically on the book. That's how fast it can happen with the internet. And he's not from the United States. I don't know where he's from. He's probably South America, but just like that, I had another guy that took the spot before I ever even reached out to anybody else. They found me. So the more accessible that you are, if you're hiring people, you need to make yourself accessible. Like, they can message you, they can email you, make it very easy for them to find you. But then on the other side, if you're an artist or a colorist or whatever, you need to be posting in places where I can find you, which is why I'm on Facebook for the most part, is because all these groups, all these art groups, I get inundated with art every day. And so I find people, I'm like, "Oh, that's good. I want to put you on a cover."
I mean, as an interviewer, it's unbelievable. I legitly can find, if I wanted to do legitly every day 2 interviews, I could do it. I could book up my schedule for the year and do 800 interviews a year. Easy. I think I would die doing it. It'd be insane. But like, I have so much selection, and I'm not even hiring anybody. But, and that's just the US alone. I mean, it's just that I'm selective on who I want on my show, because I want to see who I want. And I'm like, "Oh man, I love your artwork. I would love to speak with you." But I mean, it goes to your point even further, is that if you're just looking to hire somebody, or you're looking for work, I mean, it's not that hard to get it. It's really not, if you want it.
Yeah.
Badly enough.
Yeah.
And
I was willing to do the page. Like, he was like, "Yeah, I'll do the sample page." Like, there's a lot of people that are artists that are like, "I'm not doing like free work for you." I'm like, "It's not free work, dude. Like, I'm not doing anything with this. You're going to make this page. It's going to be low resolution. Like, I'm not doing anything with it. But if I hire you, that page will be part of the book, and then you'll get paid for it." But there's so many people that like I said, like, all of his samples were all science fiction. And I'm like, this is all crazy, man, but this is all made up bullshit. So can you draw like a boat? Like, how can you do that? Like, I think you can, but you need to show me that you can, because
it's a legit question. It's a legit question, yeah. Right? In which that it's not a bullshit question, right? So like, I get questions from people where they're asking, "Hey, what does an interview do for me?" Well, I'm like, you got to realize I'm going to post this into a bunch of Facebook groups. You got to realize that this thing lives forever. You got to realize that I'm going to cut up into a bunch of positions. I don't know exactly what it's going to do for you, but it's media. Like, what do you want me to tell you? Yep. Like, there gets a position where it's like, you could keep posting something in, but if I post something in, somebody says, "Okay, cool." For instance, with you, when I post this interview to a bunch of Facebook groups, somebody's gonna be like, "Okay, a different person than Tom just posted this in. Let me go look at it." And they might have a different reception to it because it's not being spammed. And it's a long form conversation, and it might have a different reaction. Mm-hmm. So again, but some people just don't get it. Or some people think they're better, or their prestige is the word I like to use.
Well, I mean, yeah, to a degree of it, like in the art world, is just, I think people don't get that sometimes art doesn't translate from one thing to another. And so what you're doing, like if you send me a bunch of samples of like Batman and Superman, I'm like, okay, but can you draw Wonder Woman? Like, can you draw women? Like you got to be able to draw women for what we do. So I need to see that you can draw a woman as well as the boat. And I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't get the job, all you've done is added something to your portfolio. So, just take it, put it in your portfolio and say, well, this was a sample that I did for somebody else. And, I didn't get the job, but here's what I do. It's an advancement of you. And if you don't get the job, there's probably a reason. Now, I would hope you get a reason. Like, I don't want you to get ghosted, right? Like, fuck that guy. Like, get it out of here. Like, I would hope he'd be like, well, look, this is good, but like, you're not, your women are too muscular, or, your boats don't have, they don't feel like they're floating on the water, or, whatever it is. I would hope you get some feedback on your test page, but if you're not willing to even do that to prove that you can actually do the job, legitimately do the job, again, assuming that you're not already showing that you're in the genre, you're going to really struggle to get jobs anywhere. And when you have a job and an editor comes back to you and says, well, look, I need you to fix this, you're probably going to give him static. I've heard so many artists giving people static about making fixes and changes. And I'm like, look, that's part of this. I understand that you don't want to fix it once it's done. Like if it's done, and you were told this is done, fine, but let's fix it. That's more problematic. But along the way, there are going to be edits and changes that need to be done, whether it's a cover, whether it's pages, whatever. You got to be able to roll with all of that. You got to be able to work within a team. And as soon as it becomes about you and your segment of it, and that's all you're worried about, that's a problem.
Oh, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. Again, I don't deal with this. I don't know. I have no experience in this. And so, but I would imagine, and at some point, maybe I'll deal with this, but I'm not at that level yet. I'm not. So again, but I would imagine, but again, I mean, you're auditioning for a job is how I view it. And I would imagine that when somebody auditions for you and they get the job, you now have a working relationship. If you're planning to do 4 issues and you hire somebody, I don't expect you to change and make them audition for issue 2 again, right?
Right.
I mean,
once you have the job is yours. That's it. And what these artists also have to realize is that we have to be really careful about who we hire, because a lot of times we'll hire a guy and he'll do 8 pages and then disappear. Like, so we have to almost test you to see how serious you are about the job. Because there's too many people that just are like, well, now I changed my mind. I'm out of here. I'm not going to do this. I'm like, no, I'm going to make you work for the gig, because if you're willing to work for the gig, then you're willing to work for the work. And so, when we're doing this stuff, I don't want one issue by one artist, another issue by another artist. Like, I can't have that. I need you to come in. I need you to be serious about this 4 or 5 issues that we're doing, whatever it is, and knock that out so that we have that arc or that miniseries done by you, because I want it to be all about you. I want to be like, this is my artist for this book, and he did all these issues, and this badass. I want to tell everybody how cool you are. But if I in my 14 years, I have had plenty of people start on things and then just stop and disappear. And so over time, I just learned that, 75% of the time, you've got to test the people before you give them the job.
And look, this is significantly different, but even on this show, I've had plenty of people not show up for an interview. Back 2 years ago, it was like 30% of my guests didn't show up. So at a certain point, you have to start, I guess, anticipating, looking at the way they respond to you, the way they answer questions. If I send you a questionnaire, are you going to fill the fuck out? Like, there's all these ways. And it sounds weird. I'm asking you a question. What's your favorite cereal? If you can't answer me what your favorite cereal is, I'm not asking you your favorite cereal because I'm going to ask you in an interview. I'm asking you your favorite cereal so that at least I get a sense that you're going to answer a goddamn question. And you're going to spend time spending 3 minutes to answer 4 questions because I don't know who you are. And it sounds weird, right? But again, I don't want to spend an hour writing an interview, prepping up, telling my audience that I have a guest, and then you don't show the fuck up. And it irks me. And then I'm like, great, there's legitimately 50 people in the back end waiting who I said no to, and you fuck those 50 people over. And this isn't even about money. And then if you just spent, $900 for 8 pages, I mean, I would be furious.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
So I get it. I get it completely. And this is why I don't want to do comics. This is exactly why.
Well, anything creative. It's anything creative. It's whether you're making TV or movies. There's always a chain of this has to be done before this, before this, before this, before this. And the people that understand the chain, that's the best system that you can ever exist in. But once the chain starts to become, well, my chain is better than these chains, and I have to, it's like, no. We got to keep all the chains equally tight all the way through, make it easy for everybody. And then everybody comes out the back end and everybody looks awesome. But as soon as we start to run into problems, it affects everything down the chain, which just sucks. But sometimes those are unavoidable problems, illnesses, and so on. That stuff happens. But sometimes it's just people are just not dedicated to what they're doing either, which is a shame, but it's just the reality of it. So
do you think that it's also maturity to some degree, meaning that certain people are just not mature enough where they want to do art, but for whatever reason they don't have a maturity?
Well, once it becomes a job, once art becomes a job, yeah, then there's definitely a lot of people that are like, oh no, this is too much work. And I'm like, art is work, man. I mean, unless you're taping bananas to canvas because you got some crazy name in the weird art world, like art is hard, man. And in comics, it's consistently hard because you have to keep doing it. Once you do an issue, you're not done. You got to do the next one. You got to do the next one. You got to do the next one. So yeah. And again, that's why you test people to see if they really want the job of art versus they want the approval of, hey, I got this job. And then, 3 pages in, they're like, oh no, this is not going to be for me. So you get tested. You have to be tested. I've tested a lot of people, and I would say it's probably 50-50 as far as the results over the years. Now, a lot of that 50% that didn't make it, they were those early onset folks that were just like, oh yeah, I want to make comics for a living. And then they got tested and they just fell apart. Others didn't want to adjust what they were doing. Like they were like, well, this is what I do. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm an art director and I'm telling you, there's a problem. Like, this is a problem. This is a problem. Like, but we can work with this. Like, I like what you have, but we need to work on X, Y, Z, whatever. And they're like, no. This is what I do. And I'm like, well, that's not what I do. So again, there's no job there.
And who is right? Whose money is it, and whose company is it, and who gets to make the decision?
Yeah. And certainly an artist is free to say no to a job, 100%. Like if they feel I'm not going to fit here, say no. We as art directors would prefer you to say no. This isn't going to work for me, because then I'm not waiting on you. I'm not guessing if you're going to last more than a few pages. It's like, okay, I appreciate you. If I have something else, I'll come back. Maybe that'll fit with you.
I'll put it this way. If somebody said to you, Tom, I love Penny for Your Soul, but I don't want to do an Oz book, right? So if you bring me a Penny for Your Soul, I would love to work on Penny for Your Soul, do a cover for you for Penny for Your Soul, but Oz is not my thing, right? As an art director, you have to respect that, right?
Of course.
Saying, look, I hope you don't get offended, but I love Penny for Your Soul. I love Critter. Oz, I don't get excited about Oz, and I'm going to do a shitty job for you on Oz. Don't hire me for an Oz book, right? Exactly. You're going to be like, dude, you told me up front, right? Yeah. This is exactly what you want to hear as an art director, right? Is I don't want to work on X book, but everything else that you do, I love these 2 projects and these 2 properties you have. Hire me for that. I'm going to knock it out of the park.
Yep.
Oz doesn't do it for me. Or somebody says, I love.
That's the ideal artistic hire, is knowing what he wants to put his energy into. And then the only other side to that coin is, as the art director, I have to say, okay, does that art that you're doing, does it fit with these things that we're talking about? And if it does, then you're golden. But if it's like, I don't know that fits this, then you have to have a conversation and figure that out. But yes, that is what you want your artists to do. You want them to be excited about X, Y, and Z projects because that's what they want to put their energy in, and that's fine.
Because there's certain things that I get excited about. Just off the topic, but related to this, is that I love certain wrestling. I love deathmatch wrestling, right? It's like my favorite type of wrestling ever. I get excited when I'm interviewing a deathmatch wrestler. I don't really want to interview a comedic wrestler. It doesn't excite me. Those interviews are good, but they're not my favorite thing. I love talking about like building a light tree like a ladder and then putting somebody through it with like, and underneath it is a table, and then you set the table on fire. I love that shit. And it's wild, and it's fun to talk about that shit because it's so bizarre and it's so out of like the norm. And you're having a light tube fight, and then like it's hard to describe the questions in those interviews, but they're great and they're exciting. I don't want to talk about comedic wrestling because it bores the fuck out of me, and that's my whole thing. So I get it from that position, but no. I think it's fascinating. Again, I haven't hired anybody. I've hired somebody to do my logo, and there was like no issues. I'm like, this is what I want. This is what I want. And this isn't what I want. And could we just make her pouch a little bit lower? And I was like, yeah, sure. She's like, no issues. It took her 2 seconds to do it. It was great. And it was dirt cheap. And that was great about it. And I own it. So there you go. So again, I have no experience in this situation beyond that.
Yeah, but it's no different than anything else. It's all business. It's all anything with a chain of command. It's all anything you need to be hired to do that isn't just menial labor. When you're making something, you have to be able to show that you can make it. It's pretty easy, pretty simple. It's like when I went and pitched myself to Dynamite, they had an awareness of who I was and what I was doing. They were like, oh yeah, like Tom, like Big Dog Inc. Like this guy's been doing this for a while, and he was with Aspen and so on and so on. So when I got there, it wasn't just like, okay, you're hired, go. I still had to kind of pitch what I wanted to do and pitch the artists that I wanted to work with, and all and on and on and on and on. But I showed them that I wanted to do it. And then eventually they were like, yeah, okay, this makes sense. Let's go ahead and do it. So, you got to be able to pitch yourself, and you got to be able to do the work that it takes to get the job. And then you're golden.
No, it makes sense. I don't disagree. I had an interview with these 2 wrestlers, Dustin Waller and Kylon King. And they got their jobs as wrestlers because they showed up to a wrestling indie event. And what they were doing is setting up chairs and breaking down the ring and setting up the ring before they got hired. So when Wrestling opened up, the owner of Wrestling Open said, do you guys want to be on the show tonight? And those 2 guys are arguably probably in the upper trust of that company right now. And they are probably in the top 5 or 6 wrestlers of that company. And that company does on a weekly basis like 10 to 15,000 viewers on a streaming service every single week for the last year on a Thursday night, which is insane. And they started wrestling in front of people where there was 25 people in the crowd, and now there's 500 people watching them in this tiny little like venue. And it's crazy every week. And so it just goes to show you that they put in the work. And so I agree. I 100% agree that you got to put in the work, and that you have to understand that if you put in the work, I would imagine that you have to think about the money will come later. Because I think if people work with you, their status goes up to some degree. If you're an artist working on a Big Dog Inc. book that does $12,000 on $12,000 to $20,000 average on a Kickstarter, and you're the artist, your status probably goes up as an artist.
Well, anytime you get to do more work, it adds to your portfolio. Hey, I did this. Hey, I did this. Hey, I did this. I did for Zenoscope. I did this for Big Dog Inc. I did this for Aspen. I did this for whoever. Just keep leveling yourself up slowly but surely. That's
because I think at this point, right, there's a lot of, I guess, the way I do it and the way I view it is that you're an upper indie comic type of publisher at this point. You're no longer at ground zero. Somebody's doing their first project. You've been around for 14 years. Most companies don't last a year in America, let alone 10, let alone 14, 15 years. And so at this point, to make comics for 14 years and to have done it independently, gone through Aspen, and then now building your own brand and doing it through Kickstarter and being associated with Antarctic Press to a degree, there's something to be said about that. So if I'm to come and work for you, and all of a sudden you handed me one of your properties to write, my status as a writer would naturally go up because I'm associated with everything that Big Dog Inc. and that you're trusting me with something. Even if I was an artist and you gave me a cover, you're trusting me with that. And that says a lot about who you're handing the ball off to, especially when you're testing them. So that's how I view it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm overinflating this, but I think that's a real status symbol in a lot of ways because you're no longer, somebody who's just doing their first project. Does that make sense?
Sure. I mean, we're way more known than I really realize sometimes. I'll have conventions reach out to me and I'm like, how do you even know who I am? Like, that's crazy. So yeah, we're definitely more. I went to a little con in Traverse City, C4. They had me up there this year, and they had Tim Seeley there as well. And I'd never met Tim before, but I knew who he was from Hack Slash and stuff like that. And so on Sunday, I went over to his booth, and he wasn't there yet, but he had some comics on the table, and I was just kind of looking at some of the comics, flipping through some stuff I hadn't seen before. And then Tim comes by and he walks in, and he says, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" And then he looks at me, he goes, "Oh, you're Big Dog, right?" And I was like, "What? What do you mean I'm Big Dog?" So he knew who I was to some capacity. And so he and I talked for a little while, and which was cool. But yeah, I've had that happen way more often than I kind of think that it should. It's people like, "Oh yeah, you're Big Dog Inc. Oh yeah, you're Critter. Oh yeah, you're Oz. You're whatever." So, we always kind of get hung up on this idea of like social media is how if people know you, but social media doesn't really work the way that people think it works. It really doesn't. And I've become aware of this. And as I've been getting out on the road more the past couple of years, because I get invited to more cons, we had stopped doing shows for a while. We were doing like 20 a year. I took it down to like 5. But now we're back to about 10 because we just keep getting invited to places. And so as I'm going to some of these cons, I'm realizing that a lot of these people that knew who I existed thought I was gone when we left Big Dog Inc. and we went to Aspen. They thought that we had disappeared. And then when we were done with Aspen, the people that knew that we were with Aspen thought we had disappeared. Because again, social media, we told everybody what was going on, but social media did not connect those dots for anybody of those people. So we still, to this day, after even doing all these cons, are still finding people like, "What? Where have you been?" I'm like, "No, where have you been? We've been doing this. We have not stopped. We've released new content every single year of our existence in some capacity. Even when we were with Aspen, we were doing some new material with them." And but because we're not in Diamond, because we're not in comic book stores, we are now with Antarctic Press. But everybody just thought we disappeared. And so it's been sort of this weird, resurgence of, Big Dog Inc. is still here. So next year is going to be really interesting because we're going to tour with our 15-year anniversary. And we're going to get back to some of the places we haven't been in a while. I'm hoping that we can get maybe back into like Planet Comic Con, maybe MegaCon, but they're a little early in the year. I don't know if we can get in there. But I want to get to some places that we haven't been in a while and just sort of remind people like, we're here. And then, of course, all the invitations, we're going to all those places. The place we were just at in San Antonio, Big Texas Comic Con, they treated us really well. And we're already in talks with them to do like a 15-year anniversary event with them as they expand next year. So it was me and Nei this year, but we've already talked to them about bringing more BDI people so that we can have like a real, like, hey, let's do a celebration of Big Dog Inc. down here. So cons are open to this stuff. Not all of them, but cons are open to this stuff. So I'm kind of looking at maybe we might do about 20 shows again next year, which is going to be a lot. I think I'm going to be at San Diego with Antarctic Press. They told me I could come down and be at their booth and sell critter stuff there. So I'm like, yeah, cool. Probably do that. So yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. But I think next year is going to be really, really good for us.
Oh, that's crazy. That's fun though. I mean, that's good. I'm excited for you. I'm happy for you. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, again, it's I think it's interesting, and again, you know, obviously, I want people to succeed in comics because you know it's tough. I get it, and if people with comics are doing well, and I'm selling books, naturally, I will do well. And if the industry's healthy, I will be healthy in my business on that side of my business. But again, I want everybody to kill it in comics because that's just where I want it. I want good stories. I want good product. I want to be able to have good collectibles. I want to be able to resell books. You know, it all works succinctly, and it all is forward progress. No flags on the play.
Yeah, my next step is there's Dynamite is doing so much stuff that I want to work on now. And since I've got connections at Dynamite, I just have to be like, look, guys, I got to get in on this. You got to give me some Herculoid stuff. You got to give me some of this. I got to do it. It's a must. It's a must have. Herculoids Thundar. Holy shit. Are you kidding me? So I got to start knocking on doors again and see what the possibilities are for getting my name attached to some of these licenses. Cause I would lose my mind if I could work on some of that stuff. Oh my God. I keep telling people like at IDW, well, I don't know anybody at IDW, but I keep putting it into the universe. Like Godzilla is where I started in comics because that was the first comic I ever bought. So IDW, I know you're watching. IDW, I will write a Godzilla book for you for free. You don't have to pay me. I want my name on the book. So I can say I wrote a Godzilla book, whether it's a one shot or whatever you want. I'll be part of an anthology. I don't care. I want to write a Godzilla book for you.
So that's like your dream book. I'll tell you mine, right? I want to write 6 issues of Teen Titans West, and I'll do it for free for DC. I'll do it for free. I'll pay for the art. So and I have this great idea. I'm not going to tell anybody what it would be. It would be 6 issues, Black Label DC. I don't even know if Black Label is still a thing, but we'll bring it back. It'll be great. It could be alternative universe, whatever it wants. 6 issues. Oh my God. Just give me Teen Titans West. Give me Bumblebee as like the leader. Oh man, I'm going to have a field day with that book. And I would love it because I love Teen Titans West. I just love them. And it'd be so much fun to write it. But I don't want to do anything else in comics. I don't want to write anything. I don't have any other ideas. I mean, I have other ideas, but I just don't want to do them as much as I want to do that because
I don't even have ideas for any of this stuff because in my brain, they kind of know what they want, right? In my head, like, hey, we've got the Herculoids license. We're planning to do this, right? And I'm like, yeah, of course. I hope you have a plan. So for me, I'd be like, tell me the plan, and then let me see where I can fit in and help you accomplish the plan. If there's a Godzilla book that's because there's a lot of Godzilla stuff that's just like one shots. Like, hey, let's just do a one shot of this and this and this. I'm like, okay, that's cool. If there's a one shot just available for me to just like tell a story, then I've got something. Then I have something for them. Something that, to be honest, has never, to my knowledge, been worked into the Godzilla mythos. And I know that Toho is very, they want it to keep moving. Like they don't want a lot of continuity. They like where stories just kind of move and bounce and just are a story within and of themselves. Which is really interesting because I once told a guy at Toho, I was like, why aren't we like using like the Showa like era of Godzilla and telling those stories like and go and there because we don't want to because that's done, that's over. We want to take few forward steps, always forward steps. And they're not concerned with continuity stuff. So I'm like, wow, that just opens the door to anything, which is really freeing for a creator. But that's also terrifying to just be like, here's a piece of paper. What do you got? Like, oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, let me mark down some ideas. But I do have an idea that I think could be turned into something really interesting. And really, again, unlike anything that we've done before. So
I hear you. I hear you. I would like to see it again. My Teen Titans West idea would just be pure fun, alternative universe. Nothing like it could fit in the regular DC universe, but I just want 6 issues. And I think people would be like, okay, I kind of get what you were doing here, and I appreciate it. But it's close to the vest. It'd be a lot of fun for me. I don't know how it would do, but it'd be a lot of fun. And I definitely have some fun cover ideas for that too. So again, this is a dream for me. So, it would be fantastic, but that's the only thing I want to write in comics, because anything else I feel would just ruin my enjoyment of comics right now. It's the same reason why I don't want to, actually that's not true. Maybe I will create a wrestling promotion, but not the point. I don't want to be a voice actor because it would ruin anime for me. And I've learned a long time ago that certain things should not be ruined in life. If you enjoy something, it's sometimes hard to enter that industry.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. You'll get into any business and you'll realize really quickly what parts of it are fucked up. I'm well aware of the parts of it that are fucked up. There's a lot of companies that I actually kind of almost had opportunities to work for, but I was like, I know better. I know better than to get involved with this. This is not going to work. Like we talked about with the artists earlier, right? Like I just knew internally, like even if they said, yes, we want you to come write this stuff, I knew it was not going to work. But with Dynamite, it was great. Dynamite was awesome. They were all in, they were all about it. I do have the green light from them to do another book, which I'll probably start writing sometime next year. We'll see how fast it gets like completely done. But I did pitch them another thing and they were like, yeah, go ahead. So I've been doing some research and trying to figure out like how to really bring that about. But
I agree. I agree about businesses. Once you start entering something, I know everything that's fucked about cards. I know everything that's fucked about cards. And there's information that I should not know that I know now that is not great. And I understand. And there's a reason why people don't talk about it, because once you start talking about it, it could cost me a lot of money, for lack of a better word. And so there's just a lot of fucked up shit that goes on. In that sector, there's a lot of fucked up shit, and you probably know more about comics than I do. That's fucked up. So, so I get it. And this is just from a resale position. The whole thing's a fucking nightmare once you enter it. And all I can say is that there's been a few circumstances, and it's not pleasant. But I get it. But I'm glad. I mean, I have no problem with Dynamite. I like Dynamite's work. So, but that Bad Kitty book, I mean, so,
the best thing they've produced in their history.
I enjoyed it. I read that book. I backed it too. I enjoyed Bad Kitty. A lot of stuff in there. There's a lot more stuff that could have been done. I mean, you could write
but we only had one issue. It wasn't an opportunity of like, give me a mini series. That would change the whole dynamic of it. We were just like, let's reset the character. Let's give people a remembrance of who she is. Let's get rid of that weird multiple personality thing that they tried to do, and just reset her, put her back in position, attach it to the original Chaos stuff a little bit so people remember like, okay, this is where it came from. This is where we can now go with it. That was the whole point, is to just create some doors to push it forward. And we'll see if they want to do any more with that. But the book that they gave me the green light on is completely different. So we'll see how that plays.
Oh, no, I get it. I'm not going to press you on it. And so don't worry about that. But again, also, isn't that sometimes with comics is that you just have to create the door for the next book too? Mm-hmm. I mean, you mentioned it with Bad Kitty, is that you don't know where things are ever going to end up in comics. You don't know what IP is going to be Hollywood, what IP is not going to be Hollywood. I think Dynamite has some stuff with Vampirella. They got some other stuff too that's out there. Obviously, the Red Sonja stuff. Is there a movie coming out that, or is that being produced? I don't even know, right? Because Red Sonja is Dynamite, right?
Yeah.
Still. I mean, Dynamite has the license for it, right?
Yeah, they're still making it all the time.
Again, I've been a little bit out of the scene with Dynamite. I'm sorry. I've been a little bit out of the scene. I've been out of the scene with a lot of the mainstream stuff. I've been more into the indie stuff anyway. But anyhow, I digress. But again, I mean, you never know when something's going to be Hollywood, and you never know with that stuff. But again, I digress. But anyway, going back to all your stuff, because I do want to talk about the covers, because that's the fun stuff. So this is my favorite part of the interview, because we got pictures, and I like pictures. So I know this one's available. I know this one's available. I know this is on the campaign. It's very Halloween-esque. I feel like this is a Mars thing. I don't know why I feel that way.
We call her the Cat Girl of Mars.
I mean, I would ask you for Wolverine, but that'd just be offensive on this cover. There's also the comedy part of the interview too, everybody. I do enjoy Drax Gal a lot. Because I know
half the artists on this book are first-time BDI guys, including Drax. That's his first ever BDI cover. So it's great to have new people and have people react to them like the way you hope they would.
Let me ask you this, because I don't think you owe any artist anything, a job, a gig, a new artist, an old artist, a veteran, or whatever. But I also think to some degree, and it's just my take, and feel free to tell me I'm wrong here, but I do think it's important to bring in fresh blood, whether they are brand new to the industry or they've been around for 20 years but never worked for you, because I don't know how you feel, but I would imagine that mixing it up sometimes is helpful, because I'm trying to find the right way how to put this. But
well, again, you're playing the shell game, because you know that there are people that when you put a specific artist on, they will buy the book, and your existing people will buy the book. But when you switch that and you're like, hey, here's a new guy, the people who only buy the Dan Mendoza cover, they're going to look at that and be like, well, that's not what I want. And so you have to hope that your existing fans accept these new guys. It's difficult to put new people on. If they have a name like Drax, it's easy because he's already in the industry. But if it's just somebody out of the blue that you're just like, I found this guy on Facebook and he's really good, it doesn't always translate immediately. Is like when I found Fabio Simao and put him on books, he was doing interiors as well as the covers. So he blew up in a hurry as soon as he started doing that. All of a sudden, everybody wanted Fabio. And Fabio is amazing. He's an incredible artist, and he's very hard to nail down for a lot of work now.
I like his work a lot. I like a lot.
Yeah, Fabio's great. So, but again, he's doing interiors as well. So a lot of these cover guys, they're great cover guys, but that's all they do. And so you don't get a sense of them quite as quickly. Now, Leo Matos, who's the guy who does that first cover, the Kick cover, he does interiors. Yeah, he does interiors as well. I've seen some interiors, and I was like, "Oh, fuck, this is really good." So, I think Leo is gonna get some extra work from us here pretty soon, beyond just covers. And when that happens, he's going to get a lot more eyeballs on him really, really fast.
I'll give you the analogy, right? You have a team, right? You have a baseball team. You got 27 guys on your team. And you got a DH spot. Every once in a while, if you move your DH around, depending if you're facing a right-hand pitcher or a left-hand pitcher, it could be helpful. And if you're bringing up somebody and then you sit a cover artist who does well every once in a while down for a book, I understand that you might be giving up money, but it also could have a switch effect, or it could throw a different curve that could be helpful.
It's a long term that you're looking for. You want these guys to become, even if they're lower sellers now, you want them to become higher sellers over time. Because again, even if you want to use all the big names, you can't all the time because they're doing their own stuff. So it's not like I can just tap Dan on the shoulder, every month and be like, give me another cover. Like, that's not going to happen. So you have to have people that you are home growing. And we've done this over the years. Jen Broomall, Natalie Sanders are some of the bigger ones. We've done this over the years where we've kind of homegrown a lot of people. Even Nia Rufino, we gave her first ever cover, and she's been with us ever since. So you got to homegrown some people. Narcio Suso was a guy that came out a little bit slow with us, but people liked it, and it grew. He grew and grew and grew, and now he's a staple for us all the time. So I love finding new people. I love seeing what they can do. If they can do interiors, that's so much even better, because people just get to know them that much better and that much faster. But if they are just cover artists, I just want to keep pushing them. Like, do this, do this, do this, do this. Jonathan Mills, who did the Nosferatu cover, he's brand new for us. Leo Matos, yep, that one. He's brand new for us. Who else is new? The Clockwork Kitten. That's Larry Tuison. Now, he's been doing stuff for a while, off and on, and he does interiors too. Yeah, he does interiors too, but not much anymore. He's really mainly a cover artist at this point. But he was a guy that I was watching for a while, and I finally got hooked into him. And I'm like, fuck, that's amazing. That's a crazy one. And then the other guy, the Catpool one where she's on the building, that's Jimbo Salgado. He did a cover for us many years ago for Princesses versus Zombies #1. So this is his first time back in a lot of years. I keep talking to him all the time, and I'm like, oh, dude, we got to get you back. He's like, just tell me when. So we got him to do the Catpool cover, which came out incredible. So yeah, there's a whole lot of new people, which is great.
Because this is how I feel, right? I'm always looking for the next cosplayer, the next wrestler, and I'm always looking for veterans too. And I try to create a balance, right? Even with voice actors too, because I want the stars who are going to be there in the next 3 years, and I want them before they're stars. Because finding a star and getting a veteran on my show is harder than getting somebody brand new. But then if I'm your first interview, I mean, I could tap that out. And it's very helpful sometimes. It's like, hey, this is going to be the next superstar. And I like to find that, but I also like to find people who've been around forever. And I kind of want to pair that up together. And that's just how I run my show. And I don't know if that's similar to finding artists and figuring that out, but I do think there is a skill set in finding new talent or undiscovered talent, building them up, but also having your veterans and then using both of those things to further your project.
Yeah, this one was like, it didn't really occur to me how many new people we were going to have on this until all of a sudden I was like, holy shit, like half the people in this, nobody knows who they are. At least within the Big Dog Ink sense. So that kind of threw me off for a minute. I was like, oh, that could be awkward. Because I don't have Nia, I don't have Keith Garvey, I don't have Marissa Pope, I don't have some of my standards. But I felt that the art that we had was definitely worth having. And I think all of those guys are going to come back, every single one of them. And like I said, with Leo and his interior work, I'm really looking at what I can do with him. Cause I really liked his interiors too. And then there's this new guy who took this new job. This is a long-term job for him. So he's not doing anything until that's done. But once he's done, the door will be open for him to do other interior work. Because he's really good and he's got a really great page panel layout sense and everything. So there's a whole lot of new people right now, but at the same time, you want to still be able to tap into the eBass audience and, the DeBalfo audience and those guys, but they're not always available. So there's not much you can do other than just build your own army and see what you can do with it. So that's what we're trying to do. I mean, that's what we've always done. Finding guys, like I said, Jen Broomall, Natalie Sanders, Ian Snyder, JB Neto has been the only artist on any of our books that has done all of the issues through all of the series. FICO Osio originally on Critter, he did most of the series. So I can find guys. I know what I'm looking for. It's just a matter of timing, availability to them, finding Fabio, another example, just finding the timing and putting them on things. Carlos Reno took over Oz and has been brilliant and is now working for, DC and all these other guys. Like it's incredible what has happened with all the people that I've hired over the years, and they've moved on to other projects. So whenever I can pull them back and get them on stuff, I'm thrilled. And to watch them go from, for us, it's like the minor leagues, and then they grow and grow and grow, and they get picked up by the big guys. It's like, God damn, man, this is great. This is fantastic. So
it's nice to be there first and discover talent and recognize that. I mean, there's been few people.
Well, yeah. And Shannon Mayer, we had his first ever cover. And when people finally caught on to who Shannon was, once he was working for other companies, that Oz cover went batshit crazy in price. So yeah, once these guys sort of expand out into other territories, people figure out who they are. They want to know like where they came from. Like, oh, this is his first cover. No, he used to work for all these companies. Like, holy shit! Like, look at all this work. And that's fantastic. Mel Milton is another guy that's fantastic. He's doing stuff for DC now. Yeah, it's Elias Chitsaudis we get to work with now. God damn, Tim Vigil works with us. We have a ton of like big name people coming into Big Dog Inc. next year for our anniversary. I've reached out to a whole lot of people, and I'm like, look, I know you're working for DC and Marvel and you're doing all this stuff, but at any point in the next year you have time, I will have something for you. Just tell me when, and we'll make it work. And I just keep getting yes. And these are all guys that I've been like, oh my God, I want that guy. I want that guy. One of them just recently I've been chasing for years, and he's like, oh dude, I'm so swamped. And I'm like, literally any time in the next year. And he was like, message me around Christmas. And I was like, fuck yeah. So, hopefully that plays. Cause I can already see what these guys are doing. Some of it's already done. I already have one of the guys. He's already done a Penny for Your Soul, Joan of Arc cover. It's already done. It's fucking awesome. So we're going to have a great amount of like old guys for us, stars that have never worked for us, and just the new guys that we're bringing along, through all of this. So it's going to be an amazing mix of crazy art all year long next year. I'm super geeked about it.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm happy for you. I mean, it's going to be good, man. It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Yeah, it's going to put our books in front of a lot of eyeballs that we wouldn't necessarily have had. So yeah, it's super good.
Nah, I'm excited for you. I'm happy for you. No, it's a good thing. It's a good thing when companies are doing well. It's good when comics are doing well. And that's all I'm gonna say, because I can't say anything else that's better than that. So, but I digress. And then my favorite item out of this whole thing is the Halloween pack, because I think that's brilliant, because I love ripping packs. I love opening up card packs. I love opening up mystery envelopes, and all these. There's 3 of them. I think there's 3 of them. I think that it's this one, this one, and then this one. I like this one a lot, and I like this one a lot. This one is my least favorite, which means I'm gonna get this one, aren't I? But anyway, because I know Tom is already marking that down. But all jokes aside, there's 33 of each, from my understanding. It's a $40 mystery pack, and I think it's brilliant for a lot of reasons. And this is my praise on this product, is that it's limited issues for all of them. If you want all 3, you can buy all 3 and guarantee that you're going to get all 3.
Yes, but we only have like 20 of those packs set aside. So of the 99 issues that exist, there's only 20 packs of all 3.
So I think it's brilliant in a lot of ways, because it creates a need if you want all 3 of them. But even if you pull one of them, there's only 33 of each copy, which is a low print run. I mean, 33 books is not a lot. It's Big Dog Inc. It's Halloween oriented. It comes around every year. In case you didn't know, newsflash. But what is that like? Because I think it's smart, and I think it's a brilliant product in a lot of ways.
Well, we did it last month or September. Yeah, last month when we did our book fair thing. We had a cover for Schoolgirl done by M.R. Gunn, and I had him change. So it's her sitting on a chair behind like a blackboard with a blackboard behind her. And so I had him change her socks to 3 different versions. And then I had, so basically it was like a detention cover where she was like writing stuff on the board. And so each of the boards was also different. It said different things on the board, and then her socks were different. And we did the same thing. It was like, let's just do 33 of each, and we'll do these mystery packs. It was the first time we'd ever done like these mystery envelope things. We've done like the mystery boxes, over time, but I wanted to make it a little easier for some of the fans, because the mystery boxes are like $75. These are only like 40, but you're only getting the book, the one book in this case. But they did really well. People seemed interested in them. And so I was like, well, let's try this again. And so we had Terry Parr do a patch for Schoolgirl. That's the kitten with the pumpkins. That's Terry Parr. And then we had Drax Gall. He did his catnip, right, which is the pink spots. And then we had John Edwards, and Chuck Obach does the colors. He did sort of the modified Nosferatu vampire critter. And I was like, yeah, let's just do those 3 as patches and throw them in as Halloween packs. And well, it's a test. It's an experiment for us, because it's not something that we usually do, but a lot of other campaigns do them. So I was like, well, let's just try it out and see what goes on with it. And if people like it and they dig on it, then we'll keep doing it. I know people love the mystery boxes. We have sold shit tons of mystery boxes. And when we don't do them, I usually get a message from a couple of people like, where's the mystery box? I'm like, not this time. You've already bought like 4 of them. Like you're good.
It's a good deal. I mean, it's like,
it is.
It's like 10, it's like $75, $85. You get a bunch of good stuff in there. You get things that are usually $250 or lower. Every once in a while, there's like a 500, print run in there. Maybe one of those every once in a while. You maybe get like a little like acrylic stand. You get some magnets. That's always fun. And then you get like a hollow foil, or you get like a metal in there that's limited to like 10 or 25.
Oh, it's a fantastic deal. It's a fantastic deal. But there are people that are just like, a lot of the people that don't buy them are just the ones that already have all the books. So they're like, well, I've probably got all of that. I want that one book that's in there. And so we generally do some sort of a modification to it that they can just buy the book, whether we make it a hollow foil or a virgin edition or something. We do an alternate edition that they can buy on its own.
Like that TikTok by Mercer Pope.
Yeah. So we did that one, but then we did a virgin edition of it too. So that way the fans that have all of the backstock don't have to just buy backstock to get the book. But for new buyers, they lose their minds. They love it. And then whenever we bring them to cons, usually, because we only do 50 boxes. And so usually we sell about 40 of them ish. And so then we take the extras to cons, and then the con people just gobble them up. So yeah, it's good.
I like it. It's good for me. I mean, for a different reason, because I don't have some of the back stock. I get some really cool hollow foil stuff. And then what I don't like, I just flip. And I mean, I'll be honest, I have no problem saying it, in which that, buying a book for $8.50 and selling for like $15-$20 easy. I mean, it's not that hard. And, I have buyers who want this. And again, it's like 8 books, but like the hollow foil is like a $40-$50 book. So in of itself, or like you pull like a 10 and 10 metal, which I pulled out of one of your books.
Basically, you're going to get a foil or a metal, which, like you said, is like $40-$50, and then you're going to get the exclusive to the box, which would be like $40 or $50. That's you're buying those 2 pieces, and then you're getting all the rest of the books for free. Is what it breaks down to. So it's a great deal. Plus, you get a nice box that you can carry your stuff in, and yeah.
And then every once in a while, you get like a magnet or like an acrylic thing.
Well, always something. Yeah, there's always either a magnet, or the last one we did had an acrylic standee in it. Yeah, so.
Yeah, so it's always fun. It's always fun. I like them a lot. Again, I have so many boxes that at this point, like legitly, like I think I bought like 3 or 4 of these at one point over the years. So like I threw out like 2 of those boxes, even though they were beautiful boxes. Yeah. I'm sad to say it, but like I just had no room. It's terrible. But again, the TikTok variation and like a metal or even a olive oil is great, and there's some good stuff in there. So then I mean I'll be honest, like some of that Oz stuff in the olive oil is great. So again, it's awesome stuff. So anyway, but I can't speak enough about your mystery boxes because I like them. I think it's a good product. That's why I'm saying it.
We'll probably be bringing them back next year. Hopefully we'll have a lot of eyeballs that, you know, don't know who we are, and it'll make sense to them, and they'll be like, yeah, let's dive into those things.
But no, I like the product. I think you can do all right with that product. Is my point. Mm-hmm. You know, if you like half of it, you can get a good 80% of your money back.
Oh, easily.
Easy. Conservatively, I pick conservative arguments because it's better to under-promise and over-deliver than to over-promise and under-deliver. So that's all I'm going to say on that point. But I do want to back out of Big Dog Inc. because I am curious how you feel about Kickstarter right now, because I know you do a lot of Kickstarter reports. So what's the update on Kickstarter?
It's been, let's see what it is right now. It did peak as it did last year.
Inktober.
Yeah. So right now, oh Jesus, it spiked again. So it had gotten up to about 330-ish earlier in the month, which is what it did last year. And then a few days ago when I launched, it was down to about 312 or so. And now, as of right now, there are 347 active campaigns. So it's in a weird flux because before last year, the 300s were in the April, May, June, July, August period. And then when you got to the end and beginning of the years, everything kind of slowed down. But now it's all changed. Last year, we had a really strange spike in the September, October period, which is where we are now. And so now that wasn't a fluke. That's a real thing that's happening right now. That's a trend now. But we also had a weird blip at the beginning of the year. February, March had a 300 blip for about that period of time. I was like, where did that come from? Because it came and it went right away. And then all throughout the rest of the year, April, May, June, July, August, September, we never really got above about 270. Average is about 250. Never really got around about 270. So it was a very interesting spring, summer to watch and trying to figure out like, why are the campaigns not happening in the summer? But again, now we have the winter again and there's a pop. So I don't know. I don't have an answer for why, but it is happening. It is clearly happening.
I can tell you how I feel about Kickstarter right now is that I am exhausted. In which I have a lot of things that I've picked up that are now starting to come in, you know, and I'm kind of just backing off a little bit, to be honest. And, you know, I mean, we're entering also the holiday season. And so, you know, and also my business has shifted where I'm selling a lot more cards, and that'll cool off starting in November. And then I'm in an off season on cards, which means I'm in a hot season on comics for about 5 months, and then cards kick up because cards just sell faster right now in my eBay store. So my position is that I'm not the norm, but I'm also, I think in the summer too, and this is just my theory, is that maybe people are just more busy and maybe people are more active and maybe there's more things to do. And maybe people are saying, look, I'm not going on vacation. My kids are, you know, home, and maybe it's not.
Except that when that wasn't the trend, why did it become the trend? That's always the question. Because it used to be, this is where you did all these things, and then the spring or the winters is where it slowed down. But now we've inverted that. And we've inverted that now twice two times. Well, again, last year we had a still pretty big summer, and then we spiked it up. We swooped it in the fall, which is not normal. But now we've swooped the fall. We're bottoming out in the summer, and we're back up here again in October. So we're seeing some weird roller coaster fluctuations.
it could also, I mean, again, I don't know. Maybe, I mean, again, I just know from my personal position is that I don't look at Kickstarters in the summer. So, I'm not usually, because I'm just running around. It's summertime. I'm doing outdoor things.
Well, but I'm not talking about just like June, July. I'm talking about like March through September. Like that's the usual high point of campaigns. And it was last year. We had that summer pop. But then as soon as it fell down, normal, we got another weird winter pop for a couple of months. And then it went back to normal, December, January, normal. And then again, February, March had an unusual 300 pop that then went away. And then we just normal through all year long till now, where we got a huge pop again. So I don't know. I don't really know what to think about this this situation. I'm wondering if the summers are going to become a time to attack because there's fewer campaigns happening. That's a possibility. People last year were like, well, it's spiking now because everyone wants to put their horror comics out. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not what I'm seeing as far as product. Sure, there's horror stuff there, but it's not like half of it is horror stuff. I think people are just trying to figure out if there's a way to beat this system. But in doing that, everybody went like, and we're all doing it at the same time, which negates the purpose of, trying to beat the system.
So ultimately, I mean, can you beat the system, or is it that somebody's just going to do something and they're just going to time it and one person is going to beat the system? Because usually
there is no beating the system. Everything Kickstarter is, there's always theories that people have. Well, there's more eyes here, there's more eyes there. That's not what I'm seeing. I don't see any of that stuff. I watch the realities of Kickstarter. I don't just watch the numbers of campaigns. I watch what's happening on these campaigns. A lot of the campaigns that are running right now are very, very, very low backer count and dollar figure. Very low. So it's telling me that there's a lot of people that are just jumping in to just be like, well, this is the time we're going to do it. And they're not making big hits. Doesn't mean they're not fulfilling, but maybe it's only like $1,000 and they're fulfilling $1,000. So we have to kind of wait and see next year to see if it does this again. Then it's a true trend. But if this just kind of goes and then next year we're back to a bump in the summer, then it was just like a correction for a while. But I don't know. But again, everything about Kickstarter is about bringing your audience to the platform first and foremost. Now, there are people there to like, hey, I'm on Kickstarter. I'm just looking at what's there. Certainly there are users, but it has to always start with you bringing your people to the platform first. And if you can't do that, or if you don't have a platform, or if you don't have a following to bring, you're going to struggle more so than some of the other guys that are doing it. So, you want to kind of raise awareness of what you're doing as far in advance as you possibly can, so that when you are ready to go, people that have been watching you build, will be like, oh, he's ready. Like, let me go over to Kickstarter. So, there was always the thing about, well, let's not launch during Brian Pulido's launch months. And I'm like, no, nobody buying Brian Pulido's books is going to buy your book. Like if you think that he's taking people out of the pie.
I'll give you an example. If somebody's buying Lady Death, but they like your book too, there's a good chance they'll buy both.
No, because here's the problem. The Lady Death people buy Lady Death stuff. That's really all they buy. It doesn't matter if they like your book or not. Really, truly, they buy that. They buy Dan Mendoza. Because again, you're talking about not just the book, not just the property, but the people. Brian Pulido, Dan Mendoza, they're bringing people to the platform. They're bringing their people to the platform, right? So the only time you're really going to see like a crossover, a Venn diagram, is people that are just there because they enjoy it. Right. It's not the hardcore coffin people that are like, I love Lady Death, so I'm here. Oh, Tom has a Drax Gall cover, I'm going to get it. No, I'm not getting that money. That's not going to happen. But what I am going to get are the people that just are general bad girl buyers. So look, I buy bad girls. I buy from all of these people, and there's a Lady Death, and there's a Mendoza, and there's a Tom, and there's a whatever. Those are the guys that I could potentially scoop from.
Sure.
But I'm never going to pull Lady Death people, the hardcore, away from that.
I guess what I'm going at here is that if somebody likes your product, just any product in general, right? So for instance, if you like werewolves, you know, and you have a werewolf book, and then Rob Matari has a werewolf book, right? And somebody likes that genre, they're not going to say, oh, I got to pick Tom's book and I can't do Rob's book, right? And Rob's coming on tomorrow. That's why I bring him up. So I don't think he's going to mind too much. They're probably going to be interested in Nightwolf and your book too.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Sure. So because they like that genre. So I'll give you an example, right? So nobody says, oh, Chicago PD, oh, I have to watch Chicago PD, fuck Law and Order, right? If you like police procedural shows, you're going to watch both, is where I'm going with this.
Right. That's true. But what I'm saying is that when people try and dodge Brian Pulido months, that's pointless because he's bringing his 2,000 people with him. He's not taking 2,000 people out of the pie away from you. That's all I'm saying. If anything, he's going to drive awareness of the bad girl people to the platform, right? So his 2,000 people are going to come and buy. But if there's just like, oh yeah, I see Brian Pulido's doing a thing, they can come in and then they'll buy your book too. Like you said, if it's the similar genres, then you get that. But don't think that there's like this fixed amount of people in Kickstarter that he then pulls 2,000 people out of it. That's not what's happening.
He's not going to hurt you. Dan Mendoza is not going to hurt you.
Right.
There are people that can hurt you technically in this, but Brian Pulido, Dan Mendoza are not the ones who are going to hurt you. You know, if Scott Snyder does a Kickstarter, he's probably not going to hurt you.
No.
If you're going to launch, you know, now maybe you're going to be hurt a little bit if somebody has a tight month and they love both the things and they got to make a choice, but you're not going to be majoritarily hurt by those people. Right. You know, now if there's a major scam on Kickstarter, you could be hurt, but so will everybody else. But that's a different discussion completely.
Yep.
So
yeah, don't be afraid of names. Names are good for Kickstarter. Names bring people to Kickstarter. Todd McFarlane does a Spawn figure, brings people here.
Brandon
or Boom brings Power Rangers, that brings eyeballs to the platform. Top Cow does Witchblade, that brings eyes to the platform. We need to grow the platform's eyeballs as much as possible, because the more eyeballs that are on the platform, the more you get the guys that are just like, oh, what else is here? Show me what else is here while I'm buying.
Again, Keanu Reeves, boom. I thought that was a positive thing. For the platform. I think Power Rangers is a positive thing. I don't know if, you know, IDW did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at some point.
Ninja Turtles is there. Godzilla is on there.
So that's a good
Transformers is on there now. I mean, yeah.
So again, I don't have a problem with them being in there.
Nope.
And them doing what they want to do. And that's cool with me. I would like WWE comics on Kickstarter. I think that'd be fun. I think it'd be awesome and get some really cool shit. I mean, Ryder of a graphic novel. I thought that was great too. Why would that be a bad thing? Because now you're getting people on the platform. They're signing up. And how does that hurt anybody? It doesn't.
Well, again, the fear is just that there's a fixed number of backers, and that's just not the case.
Fair enough. But anyway, so So again, but Kickstarter is also a platform, as you stated, that you have to bring your audience. You have to grow your audience, and you know you have to drive traffic to some degree on Kickstarter. So it is what it is. But anyway, so yeah, we still got a lot of stuff. I would ask you to describe football to me, but I know that answer. It's the Chargers. I don't know. Are you frozen?
Nope.
You didn't move for like 30 seconds. I was like, is he frozen? It's terrible. It's all right, everybody. I can make that joke because I'm a Giants fan and they're just god awful. Um, I don't know if the Browns and the Giants play again, who wins? That's a tough one, isn't it?
No, it's the Giants would win. The Browns are nothing. The Browns are zero, absolute zero.
But but didn't the Browns beat the Bengals?
Yeah, but the Bengals are terrible too. I mean, the Bengals are a terrible team. Just be real. The Bengals are a terrible team.
Did you watch
they have
that?
Burrow and they have Chase, and they have nothing else.
Oh my God, that game was horrific. The Browns versus the Bengals, that game was horrific.
Sort of like with the Jets now. They have Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, but they have nothing else. I mean, Breece Hall's okay. It's fine. But there's no fear playing the Jets. No fear playing the Jets.
I had hope. I had hope in the first game. But I mean, the Jets versus the Patriots is always fun. It's always fun. But anyway, I mean, there's no hope in the Patriots either, so God help them too. And the Jaguars are just horrific as well. But at least we have the Panthers in a Carolina team. So oh, just there's so much money in all those teams.
They're going to get a number 1 pick again.
Who, Carolina?
Yeah. I'll bet that they'll be last. Yeah.
Oh man, that's just terrible. That's just terrible, and they're still gonna suck.
It's either them or the Patriots at the bottom of the barrel. But I would bet the Panthers will find a way to be number 1 again. Oh. Imagine that. They would have had the number 1 pick 3 years in a row, based off of the trades. Crazy. That's a shitty franchise right there.
I thought they traded a first round draft pick.
They did, but they got it. That's why it went to the Browns or the Bears this year. But if they were the worst team in the league, so they got the first, but they had traded that first to the Bears, and that's why Bears drafted Caleb Williams this year. So they traded to get the number 1 pick. They took Bryce Young. Then they were so shitty that they got the number 1 pick again, but they traded that to the Bears. And then this year, they're going to be so shitty that they're going to get the number 1 pick again.
Oh man, they're just horrific.
Yeah, it's total futility. And I remember when Andy Dalton came in and he lit it up, and everybody was like, "See, Bryce Young is the problem." And then he hasn't won a game since. I'm like, no, it's the Panthers are a problem. All of the Panthers is a problem. So yeah.
But at least the Commanders are decent. But the whole fucking
surprisingly, but if Jaden Daniels is out for any period, that's not going to help them. They'll lose a few if he's not in there.
That is true. But he's I think he's better than Caleb Williams.
I don't know. I don't know. I think maybe only in the context that Jaden Daniels has fewer weapons. Yes, because Caleb has fucking all the weapons you could imagine. And he's coming around. He's built himself up from what he was in the first few games for sure.
I'll put it this way. Jaden Daniels has shown that I think he's more comfortable on the field right now.
Sure. Yeah.
For Caleb Williams, it might take a year or two.
He has no pressure on him. He's just a guy on a crappy team that he's making it look good. Caleb Williams is the number 1 pick in the draft, where people were already talking about he's going to take this team to the Super Bowl in year 1. Like, that's a shitload of pressure. And
it's the problem that Bryce Young has, where it takes a while. If you're the number 1 draft pick, there's a reason why you're the number 1 draft pick, because you're going to be on a shitty team, right? I mean,
sure. But that's why everybody's on Caleb, because he has all the weapons he needs. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet is becoming a top 5 tight end. He's got DeAndre Swift running the ball. They have a decent defense. Like, he has enough that they should be in the playoffs, as long as he doesn't crack. And he got through the first handful of games. I always said that he's going to come in, and if he sucks eggs, and the pressure starts and the city starts to be like, oh my God, we're fucked again, the pressure will mount and he'll start to crumble. But the defense has kept him in games to a point where all he has to do is manage the game and find his groove. And he's finding his groove. And I took Cole Kmet on my fantasy team, and people were like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, you watch, that's going to work. And it's working like wildfire now. So Caleb's getting comfortable with all these guys. And it's not going to surprise me that they're in the playoffs at all. At this rate, they might even challenge for the division. I think the Vikings are going to start slipping, even though I like them a lot. The Lions are good, but I think they're beatable. And the Packers, I don't believe at all. I believe they are going to find a wall, and it's going to happen, and it's going to be really ugly. I don't believe anything that I see with the Packers at this point.
I think the Chiefs are going to be in the playoffs easy.
Oh, of course, they're going to win the division. They'll win the division.
I think the 49ers are a disaster.
Well, everybody on that team is injured. I mean,
so
they're going to be, even with McCaffrey coming back in the next few weeks, that's not going to be enough. They're going to miss. They're going to slide. Yeah. I picked 5 teams a few weeks ago to be out of the playoffs. Let me see if I can remember who they were. Raiders are out. Patriots are out. I called the Jets out before the Devontae trade, and then the Devontae trade happened, and they got shelled by fucking the Steelers. So I was like, yeah, they're done. The Browns were out, and somebody else. I don't remember who, but all 5 of them that I picked, I was like, yeah, I still feel completely confident in all 5 of those. The only one that kind of worried me was the Jets when they got Devontae, but they showed me that there's nothing there. So, yeah.
I mean, the Panthers aren't going to make it. The Giants aren't going to make it.
There's plenty that are down on the down lower, but I wanted to pick teams that had a couple of wins, to be like, look, we all know that these teams suck balls, but I want to get on the limb a little bit here and call the Jets out. Like, Jets are done. Like, even the Raiders were doing okay for a bit, and then they just collapsed. And now they're done because their quarterbacks are toast. Aiden's done. Gardner Minshew can't do anything. But I think the biggest surprise this year, besides the Commanders, is probably the Broncos. I would never have imagined that team doing what they've been doing. But I loved the story that we've been told of Bo Nix telling Sean Payton, that's a shitty play call. Like, and I scored a touchdown. Like, that's a thumbs up right there. That's the quarterback you want. Like, stand up for yourself, know what you're doing, know what you're talking about. Like, that's a frightening quarterback right now, that guy, for the future of our division. That is a guy I don't really want him to be there because he's going to cause problems for us. So, but yeah, he surprised me. He's been a surprise. I think he's been the biggest. Him and Jaden Daniels have been the biggest surprises.
No, I mean, I'm a Giants fan. I got to hand it to Jaden Daniels. I think he's the real deal, and I think he's going to be a good quarterback, and I think he's going to be terrifying. He's going to be a problem for that division. And I'm not saying the Commanders are about to, necessarily win the division, but, I don't really like the Cowboys. I don't think they're doing great.
The division is wide open. Eagles are not good. Cowboys are not good.
Everybody in that division is.
They're all mediocre teams. That is a wide open division. Yeah.
Oh, it's a fucking disaster. It's so painful to watch every single one of those games. That Cowboy Giants game was horrific. That Eagles Giants game was horrific. It was horrific. Like, the first 30 minutes of that game sucked. Like, it was, and I understand that the Eagles destroyed the Giants, but it wasn't even that the Eagles should have scored. It should have been like 72-0. And it was like, it was a loss for the Eagles, even though they won. Like, it was that bad. Like, you're playing a horrible team that can't play defense and fucking can't score a touchdown, and they held you to 28 points, and like Jalen Hurts got sacked like 19 times. Not 19 times all. It was just horrific. It's like one of the worst football games I've ever watched. Ever. And I had money on the Eagles too, which is even terrible. Like for the first 15 minutes, I was very scared that I was going to lose like $20. It's very upsetting. Which means I wouldn't have backed your campaign, so you should be thankful.
Fucking Jalen Hurts, yeah. Yeah, that's
Like,
good. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see. Well, again, assuming Daniels isn't hurt for any kind of extended period, wouldn't surprise me to see the Redskins win that division. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
No, I'm excited. In which I like seeing him play. I like seeing him do stuff, and I thought that they had a great game against the Ravens. I really thought that was a great game, and even though they lost that game, I think in many ways it was a really, really solid game for the Redskins / Commanders now. So, but they're the Redskins to me. I could tell you that.
Yeah, but Commanders was a dumb name.
I think, yeah, I'm not a fan of the name. I'm not
Could
a
have
fan
done
of.
better.
But also, this is how you know they were bad. They didn't hire Tom Hanks to rebrand them. The Guardians at least hired Tom Hanks to do their job.
Guardians is dumb too.
It's better than the Commanders.
I get it that it's tied into the city somehow. I get it, but I don't like that either.
I mean, it was just it was stupid. It was stupid. I don't really get it. There's a million other names they could have done. But I digress. I have nothing else to say about football except that I'm going to make a lot of money this season betting against the Browns. So that's all I have to say. But getting back to Big Dog Inc. So obviously I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself for what you got coming out. Obviously you got a campaign, 18, 17 days left, give or take.
It ends on the 9th of November. We'll be at Akron Comic-Con that weekend. I'll be there with CB Zane. So we'll be ending it while we're at the con. Well, it'll end that night, but we'll be at the con, on that final day. And then that's it for us. We'll wrap it up until we get into January and we start our 15-year anniversary. Looks like I might be at Albuquerque Comic-Con in January. They're inviting us out to come, make a big deal out of it. So that's a possibility I'm looking into. And then next year it'll be Critter, Penny for Your Soul. Penny for Your Soul will be kind of the big focus. But we'll have our BD 15 anthology. That'll be next October. We usually do that in the summer, but I'm moving it to October because it's going to be all sort of horror related theme. So we'll have like a Halloween anthology, but it'll be the BD 15 anthology. And yeah, just some, hopefully if all goes well, this new book will be out next year as well. If this artist can do what I think he can do, we're going to start working on that project right away. And we'll run that through June and July. That'll be our summer one. And that's going to be an original graphic novel. That'll be an OGN. That'll be a full-sized, like 100-page book, all at once, no issues this time. So we're going to kind of test the waters on doing an OGN. We'll have a hardcover edition. We'll do softcover editions. So that'll be an interesting experiment to see how people react to that. But yeah, that's what we're doing. And then on Facebook, for those that are on Facebook, we do 2 weekly shows on the Comic Book Shopping Network. Sunday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, Wednesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. We sell my books. We sell just general fun stuff as well. So depending on whatever you collect, we got something for you. But if you want to learn more about Big Dog Inc., hit up Facebook. That's where we do most of our focused social media stuff. We are on Twitter. We are on TikTok. We are on Instagram, all that kind of stuff. But we do most of it on Facebook. And then we have, of course, our Patreon, which has been growing really nicely as well. So if you guys like to kind of get the gist of, how do you make all this stuff, particularly if you're a creator and you want to kind of watch how we do it, that's what we do. We show kind of process of everything, logos, designs, lines, inks, colors, the whole thing. You get to watch all that stuff happen. In some cases, if you're at the VIP tier, you get to help like vote on things. They voted on names for characters. They've voted on like the participants for the pillow fight issue that we did. So they get to have a little extra fun. Plus, if you're a Patreon member and you're a backer of our campaigns, you get what's called Patreon perks. Dun, 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 which most of the time we do these sketch cards. So we have sketch cards drawn up, like CB Zane has done these, Nia Rufino has done these, and you'll just get a free art sketch card for Patreon perks. But we've done other things too, like metal cards and things like that. So Patreon perks, join Patreon and back our campaigns and get more freebies.
Oh, that's good. I don't know how I can follow that up. Except to say that you need to support indie comic creations, people creating stuff, and the way to do that is obviously backing campaigns, Patreon, crowdfunding backing. Also, buying directly from people is a big thing that helps tremendously. But even going beyond that too, I get it.
And like we talked about earlier, the better that we do, the more awareness of what we do happens. And that's when things like Hollywood can come knocking. So I actually have a producer who wants me to pitch Princesses versus Zombies to them as potentially a movie or a TV thing or something. So I'm in the process of building that pitch and sending it off to them. So the better that we do in our Kickstarters, particularly our Kickstarters, because if we can just show direct, like, hey, look, we've got 1,000 people that buy our stuff all the time. That helps us sell the product to other forms of media, TV, streaming, Amazon, whatever. So the more you help us, the more all of this can grow.
Yeah, no. And I've also been just saying, even on top of just that, backing, also social media is a big deal. Sharing our content goes a long way. And it goes a lot further than I think people realize, because you don't know who's going to watch something. I shared out a post with a guest of mine 2 years ago, and it just so happened that it came across a person who was a movie/script writer, and the two of those people connected because they saw an interview. So, you never know what's going to reach somebody and how it's going to reach somebody and who is watching and why they're watching. And I didn't know the person it connected with, but they just saw an interview and they're like, oh man, it looks like a great product. Let me reach out to this person. Yeah. And lo and behold, the person owes me a beer next time I see them at a con. I'm going to hold them to it because I believe I deserve a beer for that connection. Other people might disagree, but that's perfectly fine. It's what I think, not what you think. But anyhow, enough about that. I'm going to promote myself. Obviously, I am Pop Anime Comics on Twitter/X, Pop Anime Comics on Instagram, Pop Anime Comics on Facebook, Pop Anime Comics on YouTube, Pop Anime Comics on TikTok. I have an eBay store. Look for comics and collectibles. Come shop with us on eBay at Pop Anime Comics Collectibles. And I tend to carry really cool stuff in my store like this, which is a base used card that's limited to about 99 of these in there. I also carry cards like this in my store, and I carry stuff like this in my store, along with this and this, which are really expensive cards, along with a bunch of other comics, Big Dog Inc., Zenoscope, some other books out there, Bad Donuts, Zombie Eats Flesh, also Marvel, DC stuff. And then you name it, I probably carry it to some degree. I'm always adding new stuff in there, and I got some really cool stuff in there, and I'm always happy. If I don't have something that you're looking for, ask me, because I may have it. It's just not listed. Or if I don't, chances are I know someone who does have it. And I'm more than happy to introduce you to them. Also, I am independent media. This is my Cash App, everybody. Hold up $1. Holler, holler. Again, the more money I have, the further I go with this, because it is expensive to run independent media. And I appreciate it. But even going beyond that, just subscribe on YouTube is beyond helpful. Just the same, because I get it, the economy's tight and everything of that nature. And so that's everything that I got going on. And tomorrow night, I am having Rob Motari on, which I don't know if you know Rob. Do you know Rob? I mean, I was making a joke here. So,
and if you back my campaign and you back Rob Motari's campaign, you will get a free mini print of a crossover of our characters, which is the second time we've done that, by the way.
I was setting it up beautifully. There was going to be a joke about a butterfly and a knight, a werewolf fighting. I mean, perfectly timed here. But anyhow, yes. So Rob is coming on tomorrow night. I'm going to be talking about Nightwolf and Snowpaw and a bunch of other stuff. So I'm very, very excited about that. And obviously, if you do back both of those campaigns, you will get a mini print. So if you like that type of stuff and you would like a free little mini print that's pretty cool, there you go. It's on the campaign. But that's everything that I have to promote. And I'm going to give you the final word.
Well, that's it. We've done what we needed to do, guys. You know, there's tons of stuff on Kickstarter. There's tons of stuff at Comic Cons when you go. People making their own stuff. Just go support the creation of things before you decide you want to just support yet another iteration of something we've already seen. We don't need more Batman and Superman. It's just, we've done it. We've been there. Time to let the people that are actually creating things create. So support the people that are creating things.
And I don't think I could have said that any better myself, everybody. So that is a